The Italian response to the situation right now, both economically and politically, is obviously difficult to read. The recent presidential elections were full of surprises, and the implosion of the center-left has made it very difficult for us to imagine how a stable government is going to emerge. Meanwhile, small and medium enterprises in Italy are obviously starved of liquidity. Unemployment is rising, and this is putting huge pressure on fiscal accounts. We hope that the people will remain patient in order for the politicians to organize themselves so that they can make the country better looking to the future. Well, the idea that Italy is isolated in the international scene is most likely incorrect. There are many more countries in a situation like Italy's than there are in a situation that's vastly superior. Even if we were to look at the north of Europe, for example, it would be easy to find places that have similar political confusion. Just think about Belgium. Or that have a similarly weak economic performance. Think about the Netherlands. So the Italians are not alone. They feel alone because everyone in crisis begins to feel they have only themselves to rely upon. But the reality is very different. And the challenge at the European level is to get everybody to recognize that their situation is more common than isolated, and to get them to work together toward an effective response. Unfortunately, our European political leadership has yet to rise to that challenge, and we're very hopeful that they'll be able to do so, probably starting this June. Well, the idea that the average Italian contributes to stereotypes about what it means to be Italian is a little bit disarming because the average Italian really doesn't exist. There are so many differences at the regional level that once you get to Italy, you discover that finding the average Italian is as difficult as finding the average American or the average German. That said, there are lots of stereotypes that Italians live up to and reinforce. Let me put it to you this way. If you go on the streets of London right now, you'll find that even in a very wealthy cosmopolitan city, no one dresses as well as the average person you bump into on the streets of Bologna. The Italians are extremely well dressed. You'll also find that if you go into London, everybody queues up in an orderly fashion. It's hard to find an orderly queue in Bologna or anywhere else in Italy for that matter. That's a kind of a stereotype the average Italian tries to encourage with gusto. There are other stereotypes, though, which are grossly unfair. The stereotype about organized crime, the stereotype about young girls and wild parties. These are not part of average Italian life. These are things that are grossly overblown in the media and for which the average Italian probably should not be held accountable. When we talk about the role of the south of Italy in the Mediterranean, the presumption is that there's some kind of independent autonomy in the south. Italy itself will have a role in the Mediterranean. It has a role in Libya, for example, where the historic relationship is extremely important. Italy has a role in Egypt as well, because although Italy is not a great power acting in Egypt, there are lots of close personal relationships between Italians and Egyptians that could foster a much more constructive dialogue, both economically and politically. And Italy plays a crucial role in the Atlantic Alliance looking to the Mediterranean. It's home to the most important American naval base, and the U.S. Embassy in Italy is responsible for the whole of the Mediterranean basin. That gives Italy a signal importance in coordinating alliance reactions across the Mediterranean, and that importance is not going to go away. There are three stereotypes that Italians have when viewed from abroad. One is they're very stylish and beautiful. That's an easy stereotype to demonstrate. All you have to do is look on the streets of the average city. Another is that they're somewhat chaotic and disorganized. I think that stereotype is unfair because most foreigners don't recognize the subtle and complex rules that Italians have to follow. The third stereotype is the stereotype that I spoke of earlier about being corrupt and prone to criminality. Now, that stereotype is fueled by cinema and obviously by books like Gomorrah by Saviano. That stereotype will be hard to defeat, and it's one that Italians themselves are well aware of.